This is a Loosely Coupled show with James Hickey and Derek Martin. If you're new to this channel, we chat about software architecture and design. Make sure to subscribe to get all our latest episodes. If you have a suggestion for a topic or a guest, make sure to let us know in the comments. Code reviews. So this is interesting to me because I have conversations about code reviews all the time, and it kind of goes in waves of, there's obviously a ton of benefit on various reasons why. For us, it's been a lot of it's communicating the changes in the code base, or just knowledge sharing about what's actually happening. So it's less about code, more about concepts in a lot of circumstances. So if somebody's working on something that maybe they're not super familiar with, that's usually where the code review is kind of starting, is, okay, what in the heck are you trying to do? Exactly, like what's the goal of what your change is, not necessarily about how you did it yet. So it's that, and like I said, just the code base changes and practices and standards, that's what you want to call it, morph over time. So to make sure that we're all relaying that information about, okay, no, maybe we don't do that quite that way anymore. Maybe we're doing this.
Yeah.
The thing that's been the most troubling, I guess this would be my question to you, is never mind the syntactical stuff of it. It has value, yes, but for us, it's generally what I was mentioning. So like a lot of those times what I'm referring to, it can't just come from a PR. It needs to come from what we're doing right now, which is how we generally do it. It's over video. It's doing reviews together over video. And I don't know how you would convey any of that nuance over an asynchronous kind of method. So I guess how do you guys do it? Do you have any thoughts about async versus synchronous like we're doing?
Yeah. I mean, there's the environment that I'm in is probably different than yours, but from my perspective, definitely PRs. I mean, my role and my strengths are more in the design, architectural kind of space. So more along like you're talking about, like how do we structure our code, and where do we put things, and I mean, those are the kinds of things that I'm looking out for the most part, is like, where are you putting things, and does that make sense? Does it fit with how the business thinks about these features or whatever? And that comes back, I mean, that can raise a whole other discussion too, about like requirements and specifications and things like that too. That is another topic I guess we could get into sometime. I'd say that it seems to depend on the people. Some people like to have to join and do the video thing, and we come up through the code, and other people don't. And I don't know if it's the people don't, but I think it's the kind of work that some people end up doing. There are some people who are working on a lot of smaller tasks a lot, as opposed to like maybe longer lived projects. So definitely the people who are on the longer lived projects, we'll meet and do a chat and go through the code and whatever. Or if there's a question, then we'll jump on and go through it. But the people who are doing the smaller, not even bug fixes, but just a lot of smaller tasks, it seems like they're not included as much. And I can see how that works, right? It's like, okay, it's just need to code a few things and then it's done, and we throw it up as a PR. And
see, that's interesting though, because maybe I'm interpreting what you just said, maybe not the way you mean it, more of I'm relating it to something that just happened to me, which was like say what maybe what would be considered a small task or a small change to an existing feature, let's say. And the conversation I was having was how, let's say, that gets implemented in a very naive way, based on a very naive understanding of the feature itself and its implications and what it is like, what it's providing to begin with.
Yeah.
And without really having a clear grasp about what it is that you're working on, even though it seems very simple to make this small change, can be really a death by a thousand paper cuts, I guess is the way I'm putting it.
It can, yeah.
Right, where, yeah, it doesn't seem that harmful, that it was done in this really naive way, but that being done constantly everywhere, not intentionally by any stretch, right? It's not like anybody's going in there to do stuff in kind of that way, but if you don't really get the whole picture of something, maybe there was 4 different ways this could have been implemented, and maybe the ideal way was actually or quote unquote the ideal way, based on somebody that knows maybe more about the bigger picture, maybe is actually a simpler way.
Yep.
Right? So it's kind of those things where it's like, when you're living in a project as big, as big as what we have now, it's like the knowledge of the entirety is very difficult. So small tasks are almost just as problematic as, not problematic, but as the care for them.
Yeah.
Is just as needed.
That's funny because I've actually been, that was an issue last week where somebody made, let's say, a smallish pull request, and I mean part of my job is to train people and to like mentorship is a big piece, right? And especially right now where we're trying to do more domain-driven kinds of stuff and bring a lot of those concepts into our work. I'm definitely the person who's investing more in like helping people and training them and trying to correct things. So yeah, I mean, I think back to even last week, there was PR that it feels like, is it worth it? Because it's such a small thing. But I mean, it's worth it, right? So it's a lot of times what I'll do is if it is like an issue where it's like, well, this is done kind of the way that the company used to do it, and now we're trying to do things this way. So yeah, I mean, I think I spent like half my day just like researching and adding comments and back and forth on this one PR, going into books that I have that I know talk about some of these topics, and you know what I mean, like getting quotes and being like, okay, here's what this person says, and try to connect the dots, but then have the whole team come in and collaborate and read those comments. But sometimes that can feel, the tough thing for me is like, where's the line? Like, how I don't want to make anyone feel like I'm like, this is wrong and I'm just trying to hinder your work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure.
But it's, it usually is the same people who that happens to, because they're the the developers who need to learn more. They're the people who don't know as much as everyone else, don't have the skills that everyone else has. So yeah, I struggle with that. I think that's my biggest struggle, is knowing how far to go, and then again, yeah, it comes back to when is it worth like stepping into a chat or into a video, and even if it's a small thing, I guess. Yeah, when is it easier to just talk about it instead of giving you all this information, which I know can be like an overload sometimes. So.
Yeah, for sure. I constantly feel that. It's like, Yeah. Information, providing information overload and like what's actually gonna hopefully stick, and you don't want to feel like you're, you know what I mean, pounding the same message over and over again. Because,
Yeah.
but I said like I hear you. It's this. I deal with the same thing.
Yeah. So I think I'd say that's my biggest struggle. And then, like I'd mentioned, is the issue of doing some design up front, doing some collaboration up front, which is something that I've been pushing for and still not the case right now. But then you get these, for me, I get these PRs that are like, okay, this feature's done. And it's like, okay, I was aware that this was a task or a little project that you were working on. But like I can already see like the direction it's going in is going to have problems, and like we need to correct this. That's happened quite a bit, and that's a problem with managing projects. I think just the way like, okay, we've got a project, we're just going to assign that to someone and that person's going to do it, as opposed to let's just get together and let's talk about like, what is it going to look like? How are we going to approach this? And the classic, there's a prototype. Okay, is it ready? Let's push it out.
Yeah.
Okay, that happens too. But yeah, with PRs, I think that upfront design can alleviate a lot of those kinds of problems.
Yeah, just getting to something way too late in terms of feedback ultimately.
Yeah, and then people feel like, oh, like I'm never gonna get this pushed out the door.
Yeah.
But that comes back to, well, somebody has to start pushing for better planning and stuff like that.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Loosely Coupled Show. If you did, please subscribe for more on software architecture and design.